Welcome to Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game. Hi everyone, I'm your host, Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money gamer extraordinaire. Today we're talking about the importance of the family meeting to your financial planning with nationally recognized planning strategist, Anthony Morris. Welcome to the show, Anthony.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
I got to tell you, I've been in this business a long time, and I've never heard anybody put so much importance on the family meeting. I think, well, you know, my brothers and sisters, let them do what they want to do. My parents are doing what they want to do. But you really see this as a correlated effort, especially with mom, the next generation to go. I mean, that's really important. Tell me why this is such a high value item and we should actually do this.
Well, Steve, it's entirely conceivable that you're worth $2 million at age 65 and you're only worth $1 million at age 75. And in every one of those 10 years, the stock market and your assets grew. You say to yourself, how's that possible? It's called a private nurse for mom at $100,000 a year, forecast cost in 2 decades' time, and you're the only child cutting the check. So it's very important. We have the 6 steps of financial planning. The 7th step to me is that the family engages in a robust and honest dialogue about all of the complex or the hornet's nest of money issues which could end up affecting all of the kids and or all of the parents' financial wealth and financial health going forward.
Now, you have a survey for this that we should walk through?
Absolutely. This is a survey that financial advisors use. Your consumers could certainly use it themselves. And what we have here, literally, is a letter that mom and dad would send to their kids, obviously not teenage kids. We're talking people who are 50, 55 years old, sending it down to their kids who might be in their 30s or in their 40s, asking them to complete this and anonymously send the results to their financial advisor. So the advisor should be involved in this particular dialogue. I made it a 3-question survey. Try to make it a 2-question survey, but I couldn't keep it that simple. Question 1, what do you believe your mom and dad are worth financially? Question 2, how do you believe their assets are structured between cash, shares, stock market assets, real estate, annuities, bonds, etc.? And upon the demise of your parents, what would you like to receive? You know, Steve, we find so often that dad has got a half-acre lot at the edge of the lake, which he's kept for the last 20, 30 years in the family. His kids today have no interest of inheriting a half-acre lot. What happens if there's a holiday home built on that lot? One of the kids wants to keep the vacation home. The other kid lives in Oregon instead of Myrtle Beach and doesn't want any interest in a Myrtle Beach condominium or home, which they can't put on their family balance sheet, because we know that the retail bank won't recognize 1/3 of a vacation home as an asset unless they control the other 2/3 of shares. These are some real issues which need to be addressed with families today.
Now, may I go back?
Absolutely.
I think we can do this. I want to go back to this first one. I'm just wondering how many children really know the net worth of their parents. When you've seen this over the years, is this a shock that it's never, ever correct?
It's usually vastly underestimated by the kids. Because let's face it, our parents, Steve, looking at our demographic, were the savings generation. They were the Great Depression, World War I babies. There weren't as many consumer choices for them to spend money on. Our parents typically didn't carry large credit card debt. If you couldn't afford something and pay cash for it, you just didn't buy it. You weren't ready for it yet. And so we find that there's a lot more assets that need to be transitioned efficiently in terms of taxes, obviously, than the kids estimate today. And so it's a real eye-opener sometimes, the results that come back.
So these questions are really to help as a family, to come together as a family and start to look at where these assets are, where they're structured, and where are they at. I mean, there's all kinds of financial products today. And the last question, which I think has a really remarkable issue, I wondered, what would I do through their estate? Do I want to inherit a percentage? Well, of course, if I have brothers and sisters, I want 100%, but I don't think that's going to happen. So they're going to walk through each one by themselves, and then they're going to submit it to the financial advisor, and then your financial advisor is going to hold a family meeting.
Facilitate a family meeting at which these differences will be tabled and discussed honestly as a family.
Now, I'm just trying to think about the typical family of baby boomers, because that's the age where this is all happening right now. So the baby boomer may even have mom and dad still in a long-term care facility. They're the sandwich generation. And now they're going into this and they're looking at all their assets and they're having a meeting. When you're looking at this from a strictly advisor point of view for our family members, what is the expectation? What should my audience think? What's the expectation first thing when I open up this meeting? What am I going to gain from this?
You're going to reach harmony. You're going to reach balance. There's going to be a sense of fairness introduced. There's going to be a confidence. There's going to be a calmness brought into that family that there's congruence and agreement and harmony about the sharing of family assets and some of these long-term care concerns and issues, which are real issues in today's world.
Now, keep this in mind, Anthony, a lot of times this is not how the dispersion of assets go. It causes problems. There's family disjoint. There's people that become angry because we didn't walk this through. Everything happened at death. And so the distribution, I mean, the probate has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. The disposition of the assets have nothing to do with it. Who gets what, when, and what percentage? This is all over the board. So having a meeting like this, and this is why I exhort all our consumers, when you're watching a show like this meeting needs to occur. When we come back from the break, we're going to walk through some of the items, and Anthony's going to say why the value of this is so great and how it can give you the harmony that he talked about. It's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. And keeping more of your money is even harder these days with high taxes, fund expenses, and fees for financial advice. And when you consider the uncertainty of the market and the rising cost of living, the purchasing power of your dollar is constantly at risk. But a tax-deferred annuity with an inflation rider can be the most cost-effective way to generate increasing annual income without market volatility. For more information on how annuities may work for you, just email me at steve@thenameofthegame.tv and ask for our free annuity information. Well, welcome back to our second segment. Of course, I have planning strategist Anthony Morris with us. Anthony, we're talking about the kind of family meeting where we really talk about really tough subjects so that we really can have the peace and the solace among the family members, as you said this brings. I noticed a stat the other day. It says talk about conversations, 61% of all families have never had a long-term care discussion. That blows my mind.
Well, it's the missing element. It's the potential Achilles heel. With some 10,000 people turning 65 every single day for the next 17 or 18 years, this is the missing element to a lot of people's financial thinking. You know, what are these subjects which need to be tabled and raised and discussed maturely amongst families? Who gets mom's jewelry? You know, how often have we found with consumers out there who advisors work with where two sons are fighting for 5 years over dad's 1966 Mustang convertible? The one wants to keep it, the other one wants to sell it, the one can't afford to buy the other one out. These are very, very real issues.
And that's a very good asset, by the way, to argue over. The beach house, mom's checkbook, the medical incapacity, who's going to make that call?
Not only that, but I mean, if 3 kids are left in an estate, a Myrtle Beach golf estate condominium, one of them now lives in Melbourne, Australia or Dubai, you can't list 1/3 of the asset, the beach house, on your family balance sheet because the banks want to control the other 2/3 of the shares. And now the daughter who lives in Melbourne, Australia is responsible for property taxes, maintenance and rates of an asset which she doesn't get to enjoy anymore. Mom's checkbook. You know, quite frankly, Steve, if mom has got the early dementia thing going and believes that bin Laden wasn't actually shot, he's actually on his way down from Portland in a Subaru with his friends, which is why mom's at Costco stocking up the basement with another 1 ton of canned meat to prepare for the war. We laugh about it, we should cry. It's called dementia and it's the next financial plague to hit America. You know, I always joke, if dad's in Santa Barbara, California with an achy shoulder at age 89 and has a nice script for medical marijuana and has taken up skydiving this week and is buying a light aircraft for his friends, you don't get to walk into US Bank or Wells Fargo and say, my dad is stoned and buying aeroplanes. I'm taking control of his investment portfolio, because they'll say on whose power of attorney. So where are the powers of attorney, and have the retail banks accepted the powers of attorney that you've signed with them? Because they're pretty good at doing anything to maintain control and possession of those assets. And then, of course, as you've referred to, medical incapacity. What happens when mom can't speak for herself? Because the very worst thing emotionally to happen to a family is to be left to standing around the hospice bed deciding whether to resuscitate or try and resuscitate one last time. What would mom's wishes have been? If mom was a Nordstrom's mom or a Saks Fifth Avenue mom, are we spending $195 or $250 on a new robe for mom when she can't speak for herself anymore and she doesn't know that it was a $250 robe? Or are we going cheap with a second-hand on the Salvation Army website? These are very real issues. Who controls mom's checkbook, and who makes these real end-of-life decisions? Organ donation, all those other things, very, very important aspects.
Well, when I'm having the meeting and I'm trying to think about my family now, just like I'm sure many of our viewers are, and I'm trying to think about how I already know there might be conflicts coming. So how can I up front, because we're talking about money and there's nothing much more important than that, especially at the distribution of the estate assets. I just want to know, hey, well, how as a family can I really make this the most wonderful and pleasurable and uniting event as I'm heading towards the end of life? And I want to get this done, but I want it to be fun. I want it to be something of positiveness.
Well, the first thing is everything needs to be documented, and the right elements need to be documented. In the book Estate Planning Through Family Meetings Without Breaking Up the Family, one has access to the checklists and agendas which one would use to create that harmony and that confidence, to make it a positive experience. And I want to strongly encourage your viewers, the consumer out there watching the show, that they engage and involve their current financial advisor representative in facilitating the meeting, who's not emotionally involved in that family, but knows some of the financial issues which might be at play and some of the greater, broader legal issues which need addressing here.
Now, let's say we had our first meeting and it was a discussion, and I'm sure there's some discovery going on. As we said in our first, we did the survey and we found, oh my goodness, Dad has another $500,000 laying around someplace that we didn't know. During the discovery process, they find this out and they find out, here's issues that are liquid. Here's my 401k. That's part of my required minimum distributions. A lot of this is already generating income. Now I have to figure out, okay, how do I partition that? I might have to change beneficiaries. I might have to change ownership. There could be areas here where I really need to think through this. So once I have my first meeting and I kind of get through what I would call the shock and awe of actually having the meeting itself, and we're there, what do you recommend? Now that we've had the meeting and we're pretty much okay with what's going on, there's no real black sheep in the family that's having a problem with this, what is our next area to make sure that we actually give the estate, if the heart is there, and I think it usually is, equally?
I think that's where a professional, qualified and accredited financial advisor representative comes in, to be able to help people make these right decisions, to create, as you say, balance and harmony and confidence, because that's what it's all about. You know, people have worked their whole life for 40 or 50 years to create these assets. One wants to make sure that there's an equitable distribution of these assets upon their demise, and fair control of these assets when they might not be able to speak for themselves anymore. Usually the best thing is to have it facilitated by a professional who's not emotionally involved with that family.
Well, that's all the time we have for our show today. I want to thank Anthony Morris for being my special guest and today's money mentor. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of the ideas you hear on our show, always consult your tax advisor or your legal counsel. And remember, as the good Reverend John Wesley once said, make all you can, save all you can, give all you can. I'm Steve Savant. We'll see you next week.